It specifically creates a provision to raise the number of older homeowners who would be income eligible for the 41C senior property tax exemption, nearly doubling the number of seniors who could stay in their homes because of this, and that we would be dedicating a portion of these funds to go to that very important need. I have met many of these seniors. They spent their lives in our city, raising their families in our neighborhoods, fighting to build community, and today, when they should be enjoying their lives, they are fighting to not be pushed out of the homes that they have raised their families in, to be able to pass something on to the next generation. In increasing the number of residents eligible for this exemption, we'll be able to provide peace of mind and stability to our elders, their families, and communities across our neighborhoods. We desperately need the ability to sustain our affordable housing efforts in Boston, and I thank this committee for your consideration and respectfully ask that the committee report Boston's home rule petition out favorably and give us the chance and opportunity to raise revenue locally to address our urgent housing challenges. Thank you so much. Representative Fluker, Oakley.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, and to all the City of Boston employees and advocates who have fought for this legislation. I'm deeply grateful for your leadership, for your support of this legislation. Thank you, Chair Moran, Chair Cusack, fellow members of the Revenue Committee. I'm Brandy, Fluker, Oakley, State Rep for the 12th Southeast District, which includes parts of Mattapan, Dorchester, and Hyde Park in the City of Boston, and parts of the town of Milton. Thank you for taking me out of turn and hearing this testimony and having this hearing on H2793. As I'm sure most of you in this room are aware, Boston, like many major cities across the Commonwealth and the United States, are in a housing crisis. It has been exacerbated by our COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, the Boston Foundation president and CEO gave the greater Boston area a failing grade when it comes to housing accessibility, equity, and availability based on their annual housing report card. H2793 seeks to address the housing emergency we're facing by imposing a 2% fee on real estate sales over $2 million and using that revenue to build affordable housing and provide property tax relief for seniors. Not only would this improve the lives of our seniors, it would also improve the overall financial stability of the city's residents. The transfer fee has the potential to yield millions for affordable housing. These funds collected as a result would go into the city's neighborhood housing fund to provide more opportunities for home ownership, deed-restricted rental housing for those with low to moderate incomes, and supportive housing for seniors and people who are facing homelessness, just to name a few. In my role as state representative, I see firsthand the detrimental impact a lack of affordable housing has on Black and brown communities and the urgency with which we need to find solutions. Mattapan, the neighborhood from which I grew up and still own a home in today, has the highest eviction filing rate in the city of Boston. The need for affordable housing is real. Simultaneously, Mattapan also has the largest Black home ownership in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. These are seniors who bought their homes in the 60s, the 70s, or my mom in the early 80s, who have made the communities what they are, who have given their life to sustain them, and now needs to be able to pass it on to the next generation, because guess what, y'all? We don't have enough senior housing available if these folks lose their homes. They shouldn't be forced to leave because of the rising real estate taxes that make their homes unaffordable. H2793 helps us to build a more equitable housing future where everyone has access to affordable housing and housing stability regardless of their zip code. I want to recognize and thank Mass Senior Action Council, GBIO, and others who have been fighting for housing stability and access that impact our elderly neighbors. Once again, thank you to Mayor Ruth for being here today to testify, and thank you to this committee who reported this bill out favorably last session, and I urge you to do it again this session. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Representative, and Mayor Ruth. Any comments or questions from the committee?
I have a quick question.
Sure, sounds good.
Thank you both so much for your testimony. Can you give me a couple more examples of opposition that you've overcome this time? When we talk about this bill, we can listen to the concerns and where you're at with that now, and reasons that folks who maybe in the past been reticent might be more convinced to.
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of others, but I'll share a little bit of the types of outreach that we've been doing in the communities whose input has been reflected in this. one major change has been, as I mentioned, the clear dedication of where these funds would go. I think broadly, we have proven that the Neighborhood Housing Trust and affordable housing funds that the city of Boston runs are incredibly effective in generating housing. But to ensure that we're having that immediate impact in the community related to seniors staying in their homes and particularly with the growing stresses and costs, that has been an important provision that has never before been before the state legislature. We also have had, I would say, a growing recognition among all sectors, the business community, the real estate community, that our housing production and housing affordability is the make or break issue when it comes to our economic revitalization as the pandemic recedes. And so in terms of conversations even within the real estate community and with developers, it might not be reflected in the kind of overall organizational representation. There's organizations that have a position and are worried about any kind of slippery slope. But if you ask anyone in Boston, they will clearly acknowledge the need, especially in this moment, for ways to stimulate housing production and to have the public sector participate in closing some of the financing gaps as interest rates are incredibly high. This is often the only way that we're able to do start housing production through public sector participation and providing funds so that the city government can play a role. I think also one other item that is maybe different than the context in previous cases is that we really are doing everything possible that we could do alone. Zoning reform has been a little bit of a hot potato issue in Boston and badly needed. And Chief Jemison and his team have been digging right in, and it's not always easy to move forward plans that will, over the next 30 years, generate a lot more density in certain parts of the city. But we have been very clear that for Boston to remain a community where people from all backgrounds and a true community with income levels from all backgrounds as well can thrive, we have to be boosting that housing wherever we can and where it makes sense for the community. And so I think those are some of the initiatives, partnering with the real estate community on some of the tax incentives and other programs. This has really been, let's use a possible tool, and this is one that would have the transfer fee would be one that provides that sustainability when the funds are readily available and aren't increasing the upfront cost of getting a project financed or into the ground.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for your testimony and for talking this work you're all doing. I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit around what Boston has done with the ARPA funding as an example of what is possible, because I think one thing that is important about the argument for the real estate transfer fee is that it closes a lot of these gaps and makes and unlocks a lot of affordable housing projects possible. So I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit to that and Boston's experience with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative. I will share a few examples, and I believe Chief Dillon can add a lot more detail to this. But there are a number of different programs that we have launched, really again to try to demonstrate that every rock that could possibly be turned over to do something on housing we are doing. So some concrete examples. In East Boston, what's known as the Blue Line Portfolio. It's an innovative, never before seen collaboration where community organizations, financing organizations, and the state and city have come together to actually bring a portfolio of 114 different units that already existed in the neighborhood. So we're not even talking about having to wait years to build new housing, but taking housing that is on the private market and using this financing to forever protect it and make it permanently affordable. There's 26 different buildings, 114 units, and that is now out of the housing stock in the neighborhood that is also gentrifying very quickly and with residents at such great risk of displacement to be able to immediately see that difference in existing housing stock. On the new housing side, again, Sheila will have better numbers, but we put out tranches of funding with RFPs to local organizations and developers and CDCs, and every batch of funding where the city can close that gap the returns are huge, and we're seeing them get going in an otherwise stalled housing market. So that 794 unit count is just from federal, mostly it's from ARPA funding, mostly, but federal funding in the last year, what we've been able to do. And I don't know if Sheila quite can remember what, that's about 800 units, about how many dollars of ARPA funding for that?
Probably about 100,000, we say about 100,000 units.
Per unit. So it's a subsidy, but again, the chance to get it going now makes a big difference. We've also done an audit of every square foot of city-owned land, and those have been either smaller parcels in neighborhoods where we've identified 150 vacant lots in our Welcome Home Boston program, and those lots put out for RFP for local developers with preference to MWBE companies and Boston-based businesses and development companies to build smaller multifamily homes on those parcels that are affordable, as well as identifying large parcels, for example, the Boston Water and Sewer parking lots that where we will be able to replace that parking for city workers, as well as build likely hundreds of units of affordable housing on previously sort of blank city-owned land and parking lot. Same thing in Charlestown with the Bunker Hill lot. There's a huge opportunity in that parking lot to provide much-needed affordable housing along with green space, recreational space, and meeting other community needs. So our approach has been very intersectional in that every time we think about housing, we also think about transportation access, we think about energy efficiency and climate goals, we think about open space and what else is needed in that community, and the goal is that every time we take an action, it meets multiple community needs and the public sector is doing that.
Thank you so much.
Representative Ryan?
When I reveal the face of the building, you refer to real property. Is that it?
Okay, say it again one more time.
In the face of the building, you refer to transfer of real property.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
There's a huge difference between real estate property and real property. Real property includes everything, including ownership, right to possess, to sell, lease, and enjoy. Let me give you an example. We can talk about the law. Once we pass a law, if we got a lawsuit, they will read the face of the bill line by line, and they will interpret that according to the description of the bill. So, let's say I live in Boston, I own a real property, and I transfer the right to live in that property to my son. Under this bill, my son, we have to pay, or to a friend, we have to pay the exercise tax. That's what you're trying to accomplish with this bill. Is that correct?
Representative Paulino, this bill excludes family transfer, so the hypothetical you just gave, it would not apply.
Let's say for a year, I give a friend the right to stay in my property in Boston. And according to this bill, my friend is not related to me, will have to pay, I will have to pay the exercise tax. Even is that what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, first, I don't think so, but I will say it only applies to $2 million and above, so it must be a very nice place if it's $2 million for a
But
year.
the bill doesn't-
Our intention is to just catch the permanent property sale. So the language is, it is amendable for the state legislature. So if our intention was to, I think we meant what you're saying in terms of real estate property, rather than just the rental rights or the lease rights, and open and defer to our sponsor in terms of whatever amendments might be needed to clarify that.
Yeah, so when we get a hearing, we try to review a bill, we need to make sure what we are, if we give a favorable review, that what you intention are in the paper, and if we go to a court, the judge will interpret your intention in the bill. Right now, it's too vague. Another example. This bill, and I know we had some problem, but let me say, this bill tries to help seniors, right? live with that. Seniors are very vulnerable, especially on the housing market right now. However, many seniors in the city of Boston transfer property to revocable trust or to an LLC. And if they do that because they're trying to do estate planning and protect the asset in case they have to be included in a nursing home or anything. So in Boston, there's this exercise tax on that on real property, even if it was real estate property, we make it hard for those seniors that live in Carolina and Boston, and now they're trying to protect their assets for retirement. Do you consider that consequence when you under this? Yeah.
Representative Feldman, I appreciate your line of questioning, and again, any edits that need to be made through the committee are fine, but to answer your last point, when this analysis was conducted, it only impacted around 756 properties in the entire city of Boston. So the example that you are articulating does not impact the average person who holds real estate or real property in the city of Boston, and even with only having the 2% tax on those estimated 756 properties, you would have great benefits that not only developers can use to build more affordable housing. So what you're articulating actually isn't as prominent or prevalent as it is in your hypothetical.
But it's not hypothetical, it's what the bill will create. Those are the issues that will be created for that vulnerable part of the population when they try to transfer a property for estate planning into a trust or an LLC. So my job, like they say, is for you to see, I know the intention, I support the intention. However, the language of this bill, as it is, for me, is very vague and it doesn't accomplish what you're trying to do.
Representative, thank you so much again. This is the space to highlight all the ways in which we want to continue refining the language. I phoned a friend and she pointed out to me that the language that's in there now in terms of the exemption for family transfers and transfers of convenience, that is meant to include the LLC personal protection transfers as well. So it would not be included. And if it's helpful to clarify that more, happy to do that. We want to ensure that most often we're hearing that when seniors are transferring, it is to family members or to take that action as you're saying, and that is the intention is not to include that as it's written with the words in the home position. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, you mentioned maximizing all the tools in the toolbox, so out of curiosity, is there any plan for the city as the city council, the other councils will be testifying, to increase the Community Preservation Act funding?
In terms of going for another
From
ballot.
where 1% now, you can maximize 3% use for affordable housing. Is that another, as an alternative for this transfer fee?
Yeah, we've already, okay, so just to be totally direct with you, we have not explored that directly in terms of going for another ballot initiative and citywide campaign to boost that number. That is something that would apply to every single property owner in the city of Boston, including those who are underneath that $2 million threshold. And so our goal was to try to really, put equity at the forefront in what we're doing and find ways to relieve the burden on more of our local residents. We have been using way more of the Community Preservation Act funding for housing than is the minimum required, right? So instead of just the basic 10% or so, it's been the majority of how our CPA funding has been used as well, and that's been a very important source to close the financing gap for many affordable housing developments in addition.
Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.